The stage I'm at right now is putting this gear on, and do you remember it had been boogered up in the scrapyard? You see that? Bring that up close. Focus. Get the light on it. Yeah. So at some point in the future, I will either buy another one of these, or I actually have in mind trying to make one. You know, Mr. Pete's got a great set of videos out there of making gears, and I've been watching them, and I have most of what I would need, with a few key missing ingredients. One of the things that I'm missing is a gear cutter itself, and a mill spindle to hold it on. So, you know, if I had a gear cutter right now, what I would do is I would just clean this, just to get this thing up and running. I mean, I think for test purposes, this little bit of remaining gear will be enough till I can get to what I want to do. Since I don't have that right now, the next thing I'm going to go back to the world's oldest mill and just get some little Swiss files out and try to clean that up to make sure that my main concern now is that in rotating this does not damage the other gears. So I want to make sure that anything that's sticking proud like that right there, can you see that? Yeah, I just want to get rid of that, and that's about it. You know, clean these a little bit, I guess, and then it'll be then I'll go ahead and reassemble. Swiss files that my dad had. If you wonder why they're called Swiss files, made in Switzerland. Don't cringe too much. Remember, this is just temporary. This is just for something to get me by right now. This material is Zamac. It's a trademark name Atlas used for some combination of zinc and magnesium and aluminum. Alright, so I cleaned it up basically so that if you're looking at it from this profile, there is nothing to interfere with another gear. That's my main concern. Alright, so now you can see what I did to the other one anyway. This is what I had to do to the inside ones to make them slip in easily. Okay guys, so trying to get this bad boy back together has been really, really frustrating to me. First I battled with getting the dust covers back in there without boogering them all up. This one, if you'll recall, when I took the spindle out originally, I caught the Woodruff key. I didn't find the slot there, and so it bent it out. And so I had to go back in there and, you know, that first mistake I was able to correct, I think, pretty much perfectly. The thing was fine. But then when I went to put it back in, I just screwed it all up. I kind of learned my lesson with that one, and so for the other one, prior to trying to put it in, I put it in the vise and just took a file and just put a little micro bevel all the way around, just took the sharp edge off there. And so now this one, you know, both of them will go in and out pretty well right now. But this one, having been by that time really, this thing has been bent and straightened so many times that it's just got some little imperfections in it. And as it turns out, this is pretty much what Jaster ran into with his restoration. If you booger this thing up, there is just no clearance between where this bearing rides in here and the face of this thing. So it causes interference. Luckily, there's a lot more clearance on this side, so I'm able to just swap these out. And when I put this one over here and this one over here, it works fine. Okay, so one frustrating obstacle down. Now the one that has me completely stumped. Alright, let's say, you know, if we're just working outside of the unit here, this is the way this is all supposed to go together. You put the Woodruff key in there, you slide the gear on, engaging the Woodruff key, and then you tighten down with the locking collar. No problem. Now here's what happens when I go ahead and try and do that. And I'm not even going to put the dust covers in because I know this is going to come right back apart. Go through all the trouble of getting this thing reseated. Alright, and that's tight. This is, those bearings are up inside the races. They're good to go. Put this fellow in here, and you're actually covering the slot for the Woodruff key. Just by a little bit now, but no. So I think maybe I'm just going to have to try again, just scooting that Woodruff key in under there. It just doesn't seem right. It does not seem the way that was designed. You know, I've already had to, you know, smooth this out after having put it in, having to get it out with pliers and all. I'm kind of afraid to try messing with it again, but I guess I'm going to have to. But you can see what you got to do is stick it up under there and then tap it in, and that just does not seem right. It just doesn't seem right. But I mean, that's the reason I disassembled it again, was to make really, really sure that those races are seated all the way in on each side, and I'm fully engaging them, and I am. Everything's good. Everything's the way it should be. While I have it apart, I'll show something. Basically, when this whole thing is clean, it comes apart without, you know, you can pull it apart, put it back together without too much effort. You don't need to press. I had to press it apart, and part of that is because of, you know, 50 years of grease varnish that was on the spindle. But another part is that this brass bushing that the pulley assembly rides on got hung up on this imperfection here, which looked a lot worse previously, and this is where the set screw here had spun on the spindle in the past, and it had a lot of I don't know what you call it, basically displaced metal sticking proud of the spindle, so that when I went to take this off, it actually pulled the bushing out. I had to press that back in. So just wanted to point that out for anybody else who's disassembling one of these guys. Alright, so I'll go ahead, take it apart again, put it together with all the pieces. So like I said, this one used to live over here. You still on? Yeah. Now it's going to live over here. Do it this way. Yeah, it goes in nicely now that I put that little bevel in there. At this point, it's probably a little too loose. Just from having been in and out so many times. Alright, so now I got this to where it works about the way it should now. Oops, unless I push it in too far. And now, there we go. Yeah, this is really kind of finicky. Not that. There's another one just like that. Here it is. As long as you don't force anything at all, it goes together pretty well. He said. That may be right. It's already gone over top of the whatchamacallit, Woodruff key down inside here. You can see it's captured that. So think I'll go ahead and tighten that down. Trying to find the slot where that engages. Kind of bugs me that this is just a screw, flat head. I'll probably replace it at some point with a hex type of a screw. There it goes. Good news is the bearings feel pretty darn good at this point. I like that. Alright, here's the frustrating part. And that Woodruff key. And this is the part I really hate the thought of doing. I didn't just make sure this is... At this point, I would rather this thing was loose. Rather than causing me a lot of problems. It's just wrong. That's just really not the way this thing should fit. Either this thing should have a slot, which it does not, or else it should go further. And there's just no more room for it to go, so I'm not sure what's going on. See what I'm trying to do here. Yep. So this really scares me, the thought of getting it jammed. Alright. If this will go over that, I'll just leave it just like that. Yes, okay. It will. Alright. So that's as tight as it's going to get, because I do not want it getting stuck. Oops, dumbass. It looks good. Alright. That just does not seem right to me, but Hey. No. Feels like I need to back that off just a little bit. And here's where I'm missing my set screw, but I'll get another one. That's pretty good. Alright, one part of this down. Alright, I think I finally got this thing figured out for the back gear. I was having the hardest time figuring out. I thought this stop collar needed to ride against here, which bugged me because this is so rough, this casting. But anyway, because there's a spring-loaded detent ball bearing inside of here, and so I knew this thing had to be prevented from pulling out because it's fighting the spring. And it basically just turns out that when you put everything together with this one stop collar, it's locked in position. So anyway, it's kind of a juggling act because you have to get everything lined up, get the ball in there, press it down, get this pin in. But now that it's and then it turned out that, you know, once this is in place, you could see where this needed to be aligned. And then when you try freeing this guy up, that also gives you an indication of whether or not you need to adjust this stop collar over here, or the position of this gear. Now, honestly, some of this seems kind of chintzy to me. The little set screw down in here, I mean, you can see the size, and it just, you know, seems like every time I go back to mess with it, it's loose again. I tighten as much as I can with an Allen wrench. You know, these little screws on the stop collars, you know, there's no sort of, I would think there should be a flat or a detent or something that they can connect to, because you're just really not able to get a ton of torque on them. So other than using some kind of Loctite or something, I don't know how you really get confident about how well this stuff is being held together, but we'll give it a try. So anyway, the way the back gears work, there's an eccentric shaft is held eccentrically to these you know, the pivots. So that's this is the positive lock because there's a detent ball there. Pop it out of that, and then you just kind of have to, it has to feel its way into where this gear and this one mesh at the same time. It's in back gear now because this is disconnected from this guy. Now when you drive with the pulley, instead of directly driving this gear, you're driving this gear to drive this one at a reduced rate, and this one, you know, directly attached to this. This is driving this one at a reduced rate, so you're getting two different reductions going on. And I haven't counted the teeth, so I'm not sure how, you know, how much of a reduction, but it's pretty significant. And then pop it out of back here. You got it. This is where this is a little weird compared to my, you know, the bigger Atlas. Is, you know, with my bigger Atlas, you can reach in there with your finger and get to that. There's a little, see this pin right here? That connects the main drive gear. There you go. So with this little guy, you need to use some kind of a, I probably need to make a tool. You know, something like a little fork, aluminum fork or something that can grab that and pull it. Because I know how hard it was to get in there, I really played around a lot with the mechanism here. This screw here pushes down on a spring that pushes down on a detent ball that holds this guy. So, you know, if you gave it one tweak too much, it seemed like that thing really wanted to hang up in there. So I fiddled with it for quite a while. I think it's all adjusted correctly now. The bearings sound good. No hang-up points. I thought I had a hang-up point and was looking inside, and it was actually a little piece of, it's actually a little piece of wire, like off a wire wheel or something, that was down in one of the bearings, and got that out, and now it seems to be fine. Yeah. A chewed up bearing on the end here. I'll be looking to replace in the future, but I think it'll actually run. Next set of things to start cleaning up are all the gears that connect on the banjo over here. So that'll be a big mess. Probably the next thing I'll clean up will be this guy. Which I don't actually have anything like this on the bigger Atlas. You know, it allows a small amount of, you know, just shifting without unbolting things, I believe. My Atlas, if you want to do any gear adjustment, you got to start unbolting things, or at least loosening, before you can move stuff around. This one appears to have some ability to adjust, make some adjustments. Haven't quite figured that out yet. But I got to clean this all up, straighten this thing out, and that'll be the next project. Okay, so just showing this for two reasons. One, so I remember which way this was put together. The larger one goes on the outside, away from the knob. Also, just to show, you know, what the purple power does, pretty good, you know, job of the initial cleaning. So my order of operations pretty much nowadays is hit it with the purple power, then with you know, clean it with water, generally the hose outside, then hit it with air, and then you start, you know, messing around with solvents and kerosene and stuff like that. And just by starting with the purple power, I think I avoid some of the mess of the solvents. Alright, so this was all bent, and my intention was to drive that pin out of there and you know, disassemble this mechanism and really try to straighten that pin. I was having a real hard time driving that pin out, so I've decided discretion is a better part of valor. I was able to get it pretty straight. So it is now going to go into the evaporust, and then I'm just going to polish it up and paint it as it sits. I just want to show something real quick. That's after a very brief time in the evaporust. I mean, like, just maybe an hour while I was messing around with, got this guy all nice and freed up, cleaned, yada yada. Anyway, so rinse that with water, then I'll wire wheel it. It's pretty darn good. Kind of an exciting moment. Getting the headstock reattached. I decided to go with putting some blue Loctite on these screws because when I took this lathe apart, at least one of these was ready to fall out. I hope this will help keep that from happening again. There you go. Starting to look like a lathe again. Kind of amazing. Shazam. So you know that experience where you've done without something forever and then you get it and you're like, how in the world did I ever do without this? That's kind of what I'm going through with this little press dealio. These gears are supposed to spin freely on these bushings, but this grease has become calcified, and so they were stuck. And this little dude has been just the ticket. Alright, so I feel a little bit foolish now. Before I was talking about how I had no idea what this mechanism did. It was unlike anything I had on the other lathe. Well, now you can see pretty obviously. By the way, after cleaning those bushings and all, everything spins freely. Very nice. But okay, so this is neutral, and this will be, you know, either forward or the opposite one will be reverse. Bring it up here, it engages this one to engage that one. Reverses what you get if you have this one directly engaging that one. Pretty simple. Pretty cool. So since this one stays stationary, this was the one that's going to engage the threaded shaft that drives the carriage. Nice.